196 kilometres in total today to add to the 2,348 covered so far. Starting out from Rodez and finishing in Revel, a couple of fourth category climbs before the first intermediate sprint of the day, so Tour Husoft might be out hunting for points there. And two more before the second sprint, which will probably be wiped out by the day's breakaway. The key climb, though, is the last one, the Côte de Saint-Ferréol, with just 7.5 kilometres to the finish from the top of it. Now, having already crashed more times in one race than the rest of his Tour career combined, Lance Armstrong decided to crash before the race started, just for a bit of variety. He went down in the neutral zone, but other than that, not much to report other than the contents of the day's breakaway. And it was a very classy trio. Sylvain Chavanel of Quick Step, Pierrick Fedrigo of Bebop Bouygues Telecom, and Juan Antonio Fletcher of Team Sky.
Everybody is now at 15 kilometers to go. It's getting busier in front of the riders than behind them because the referees are making all the cars go round these riders. So there's a void between the three breakaways and the rest. 15 kilometers left, 5 kilometers in the lead. Take that off the day. They've been in the lead for 175 kilometers today.
That is a long day in the saddle. I make it now, Phil, around about 3 kilometers to the start of the climb. I would expect them to want to catch them before the start of the climb. As you can see, Thomas Voeckler moving up now. This would be a good move by Voeckler. He would probably be the sort of rider to look to the climb of Saint-Ferréol as a launch pad to try and get himself a lone victory. Now, if he could go over the top of the climb with a 15 to 20 second advantage, he could consolidate on the descent because the descent is rather tricky.
Yes, these narrow roads, only short descent, but it is tricky. And the riders are being told all of the time by the race radios in their ears, by the team management, exactly what lies in front of them. They know what's coming at them. And look, Luke Roberts is doing it. Oh, and there's been a crash here. And who's got was one of the... well, I thought it was Aston.
Well,
it
it's
like
Jesus Hernandez. And I wonder if he was looking at the horse.
I wonder.
I think he might have been looking at the horse on the left-hand side of the road there. There's a horse galloping off. Then all of a sudden, he just decked it right in the middle of the pack.
That was a nasty fall. I think you're right. He was looking to the left at the horse that seemed to be in the mode of panic. Hernandez sits on the floor. He's okay. These boys are made of rubber sometimes. They really are. Is his bike taking a real hit?
Well, it has. And he's one of the big climbers on Alberto Contador's team. He doesn't have to worry too much about today's stage. But I remember actually seeing him in the crosswinds in the Tour Down Under in Australia I think it was like last year. He was trying to sit at the back of the echelon with Lance Armstrong, and he just got blown off the road.
Back with the three leaders, 21 seconds. This is amazing. But the green jersey now getting up near the front too of Tour Husoft, and that's significant.
Yeah, he's got a teammate in front of him, keeping him at the front end of the main field. He's going to slot into the slipstream there of Mark Cavendish. Behind him is a pale blue jersey. I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't Gerard Scholich.
There's the first view in the distance. The cavalry are coming. The three boys are not going to make this hill. They've got to make this hill in about 2 kilometers, and they're on it.
They're not too far away from the start of this final climb, and it's a little climb of Saint-Ferréol, the summit of which is 7.5 kilometers to go to the finish. So these three now, 10 seconds is the gap. Looking over his shoulder, you can see Juan Antonio Fletcher knows it's pretty much done.
Well, Fletcher just looked over his shoulder there. He saw the pack come around that corner. He knows now that they are going to reel them in. He will want to see somebody else from Team Sky try to take over now. They'll carry hopes of Edvald Boysenhagen winning the stage in the sprint.
Well, that's what he would like to try and do, and I'm sure they've been out and filmed the run-in towards the finish, because that's what they exactly do, Team Sky. They go out and film the final 5 kilometers of every race when they think they've got a chance of winning, and they send it back by internet to the team bus so the riders can look at it in the team bus before the start of the day. There's Mark Cavendish, though, Phil, sitting in about 5th position.
5th position on the last of his wheels. Now here is Lance Armstrong. I presume he's in the peloton, but there is a peloton off the back here. No, he's right near the tail.
Well, arrière du peloton, it means he's just sitting at the back end of the race, and I think Armstrong is taking it easy over these last couple of days.
It's the action at the front now as they're heading into the outskirts of Revel, but I'm afraid it's not the finish. They go out up the hill of the Côte de Saint-Ferréol. 10 kilometers now, so they're about half a kilometer from the climb.
Well, there's the catch there. You can see the three leaders, and in fact is right underneath the 10 kilometer to go banner. So those three riders who've dominated this race, they're back in the fold. What the teams of the sprinters feel have to do now is try and continue to keep the pace high so nobody else can launch a counter-attack. But you can be certain there will be a lot of riders in this group will try and see if they can get off the front of the pack now.
Now, the tactics of HTC Columbia are simple. They will ride as hard as they can to stop any attacks. George Hincapie in the blue jersey there with the stars and stripes, he's the champion of the USA, has moved in to try and break up HTC Columbia. There's an irony in that because he was on their team last year.
He was one of the big lead-out men. He was the man who used to lead from 1.5 kilometers to go to 500 meters to go. But here he has a different goal in his life. He's actually looking after the position of Cadel Evans. He's moved Cadel Evans up to the front end of the pack. Evans does not want to lose any time at all over the next couple of days, and he wants to see whether or not he can get himself a position in the top 10 or possibly in the top 5. This now, Phil, is the very concentrated face of Maxime Montfort. Little flick of the wrist there is to say to Mick Rogers, come through, Mick, because I can't do this anymore.
No, and it's goodbye at this end now to Fletcher. His job done, straight through it in one blink of the eyelid and off the back. Mick Rogers is a strong man. This is not an easy climb at this sort of speed. It is third category. It is 2 kilometers long, and it looks like they're just going to have to fight, and Luke Roberts still staying in there.
Will a finish in Revel be a sprint for precious green jersey points, or will it split on the climb with 8 kilometers to go? If you've got a coin, now's the time to toss it. And that's because the Côte de Saint-Ferréol is a mere pimple. It wouldn't normally even get a mention in dispatches, but it comes so close to the finish and is followed by a sweeping fast descent to the 3 kilometer point. This little climb is almost certainly going to have an effect on the result. With just 2 more sprint stages to go after today, any aspirations that we might have on Mark Cavendish's behalf to take that green jersey all the way to Paris quite literally rest on the line today. It's also a great opportunity for Thor Hushovd to increase his meagre buffer over Alessandro Petacchi. But for my money, I think it's going to be somebody like Sky's Edvard Bosenhagen who bids for victory in the final kilometres. It's a really tough one to call, and as we all know, they're the best ones to watch.
Now's the time to watch. Where are the riders placing? You see Andy Schleck in yellow. He's not going to pay and lose any more seconds like he did yesterday in Mons when he lost 10 seconds. As now there is a plan for BMC today. That's why Cadel Evans has moved up.
Well, this is a good move by BMC trying to get themselves, and this looks like Alessandro Ballan, the former world champion. He made a move in this part of the world last year on the stage into Aubenas, and they haven't responded at all. But yes, they have. Damiano Cunego's coming across with Carlos Barredo.
The Petit Prince has tried now to do something, but Ballan, a former world champion, this is a very typical move, and he's the sort of man with the strength. He could hold off. He's going to need a little time over the top, and it's still about 1 kilometre to the summit.
Well, this is, Phil, exactly how he won the World Championships a couple of years ago. He took off, and in that position, the man defending him was Damiano Cunego. They were on the same Italian national squad at this time, and just behind there, you can see Cunego. Everybody, this is a phenomenal performance here by the rider from BMC Racing. He's had a very quiet Tour de France. He's done a lot of work on the flatlands for Cadel Evans to keep him up at the front end of the standings, but this could be the surprise. This could steal the glory away from the sprinters. 1 kilometre to the top.
Well, as he continues to pound those eastern wheels there, Ballan is now riding clear here as he puts pressure on. This could be a move to spoil the party. Armstrong said enough for me today. He's dropping away from the action now, and the sprinters are going to have to reorganise their pursuers.
Well, they're going to have to stick together. They're going to have to get themselves organised if they want to pull this man back into the fold. That's Carlos Barredo just over on the left-hand side there for Team Quickstep.
Now, is Cunego going to get across here? It's going to be very, very difficult indeed if he's going to keep this up now.
Well, he thought he was going to. He was on the wheel of Carlos Barredo. Barredo is halfway across the gap. This is a great performance. Well-timed attack here by Alessandro Ballan. He's still got himself, Phil, I make it around about 12 seconds lead over the front end of the main field, who haven't yet panicked. The sprinters are all pretty much in the first 15 places.
Well, Ballan has set such a pace here, and yet they are slowly, and that's Vinokurov again, and Luis Leon Sanchez coming across the gap as well.
This is a great
opportunism.
Great move by Sanchez. In fact, I have a feeling the other rider with Barredo there, Phil, looked like Nicolas Roche, who got himself into that gap halfway across.
Well, I wonder what the plan was there, because we saw Cadel Evans, but he must have come up here with George Hincapie to try and get this man into a position. and he's in a position to win this now. And if Leon Sanchez gets across, another strong man in the action.
Well, he's won races like this before, Phil. He knows how to get away on the slopes of a climb and then defend on the descent down towards the run-in. But Balan has got the power. You can just see the World Championship bands on his sleeves there. Luis Leon Sanchez looks over his shoulder. It is Nicholas Roach who's got into this gap. But look at the work that's now being done on the front end of the main field. Where, Phil, where have all of the sprinters gone today?
Well, this has really hit them where it hurts most. They hate the climbs, but they thought that this would not be a real climb to ruin their day. Balan isn't interested in the King of the Mountains points. I think they're the first points he's won in this year's Tour de France. But he wants to win the day, and the man who was beaten inside to the finish yesterday is Alexander Vinokurov, and he is leading across the gap now. Well, he's caught them.
He's caught Balan, but look behind now, almost the whole of the main field is starting to come up, and a lot of that work is being done by Radio Shack. I'm not quite sure why Radio Shack are doing that at the front end of the main field, but Alexander Vinokurov, he wanted that stage victory yesterday, so he's going to say, right, Kazakhstan, why don't we have this one?
Well, Vinokurov was so upset yesterday when he was caught in sight of the finishing line, but now these two will be an immensely strong tandem. They really will. No, it looks as though Balan can't handle the next kick by Alexander Vinokurov. Is this the day he's going to win? He's tried a lot, but they've come back.
Well, it was do or die. Now it's the turn of Thomas Vogler going off the front end of the main field. That was a kind of move we could have expected from him. Andy Schleck is comfortably there, and I wonder if they've got the power or the organisation at the front end of the main field to pull Alexander Vinokurov back.
6.8 kilometres to race and counting down. There's still some believe it'll come down to a sprint finish. Schleck is sitting there at the front, just watching and waiting. Torhushoft is marshalling affairs in the green jersey. He'll be very happy if those two stay away, but it's touch and go now. He's in a brilliant position to sweep up from the sprint.
Well, Torhushoft likes the climbs before the finish. He's got the power to finish this one off this afternoon. This is the tricky part of the descent. Alexander Vinokurov has 3 career stage victories to his credit. Here, what he's trying to do, Phil, is take advantage of the descent. You have to be a very special bike rider to stay off the front end of a finishing stage of the Tour de France, and that is what Vinokurov is trying to do. He's got himself, I make it, Phil, possibly 12 seconds advantage over the peloton, but then he's got 5 kilometres of flat to survive to the finish. This is Vogler halfway across the gap.
Well, Thomas Vogler, the opportunist. He wears the colours for the second time as champion of France. A little bit dicey around that bend, but he knows you've got to take risks now. Look at the face of Vinokurov, the man that came up the climb in Mons yesterday and in sight of the line was caught by his teammate Contador and also by Rodriguez. He'd go in again.
7 seconds to Thomas Vogler. That is all the gap is, and 11 seconds to the front end of the main field. Alessandro Balan, he tried, Phil, he gave his all on the slopes of that climb, but the fact that he got caught and passed by Vinokurov, all of a sudden the lights have gone out for him.
Vinokurov, his lights are very much shining brightly here as he runs down. There's quite a descent before he runs out of descending. Then it's a matter of hanging on in there if he can. He's making the most of this descent. It's a familiar position for him. Did it down into Gap a few years ago.
How did you know? That was what was going through my mind. I was just thinking about exactly the stage finish when he jumped away and survived to get himself that victory into Gap. Someone else now leaping off the front end of the main field. It looked like a rider from Saxo Bank. 4 kilometres to go.
And he's flicking from left to right now. Thomas Vogler chases him down. There's no peloton behind him at the moment. They must have a chance now.
Careful on the first 2 kilometers downhill. 3.5 kilometers, end of the real downhill, levels out, 900 meters, the roundabout. It's really crucial and critical to keep Kev in his spot, but you do that, no worries.
And this is the pursuit now, and Case Depend, don't forget, trying to recover the team lead here, but Torhushoft is staying right in touch in green.
Well, Hushoft is right up there. There's a rider in there from Lampre. I don't think it's Alessandro Patacchi because he normally rides a fluorescent lime green bike. He may well have changed it out on the course. He may well not be surprised to see that Oscar Freire is in that group. There's George Hincapie going by also.
Well, this is interesting. The field has decided they are not going to make a present of this stage to the sprinters. They are racing, and you're looking at the man with the red number now, Alexander Vinokurov, the man who was voted yesterday's most aggressive rider. He could have that number on again tomorrow.
He certainly could. I make the time gap 10 seconds now to this man, Thomas Vogler, but 14 seconds to the front end of the main field. And in that main field, I am being told that Andy Schleck is there, Thor Hushovd and Robert Gesink. But I don't know who else could be there because it really has fractioned on the final slopes of that climb.
3 kilometers to go. The sprinters are steaming out of their helmets back there now, but Thor Hushovd is there, and he is the leader in the green jersey. Because it's so hard, not a pure sprint to the line, he has a real chance. He's a strong man these days.
He's a brave man, this man from Kazakhstan, Alexander Vinokourov. He so much wanted to win the race yesterday, Phil. He really wanted to get that victory. He was upset at losing by 10 seconds, but now what he's trying to do he's trying to come back again and hit them as hard as he can. Vogler is very rapidly going to be back in the main field, leaving only one man off the front end of this race. 12 seconds to Vogler, 15 seconds to the main field, and the green jersey of Thor Hushovd is right in there.
Well, there is the catch by Thomas Vogler as they bring him back into the fold now. There's a reassessment here. We're looking down. Cavendish is still in the sprint here, but he doesn't seem to have too many men around him as we look at 2 kilometers to go.
Well, everybody now is going to have to try and get themselves organised. Vogler back in the fold. It's 14 seconds to the front end of the main field while Milram are doing whatever they can to try and get the victory here. And I remember that Gerard Kjolek, Phil, he'd said he reckoned he could get a state victory on one of the races when it was tough on the running towards the finish. But what about Cavendish still being there?
He's still very much there, and he'll be sharpening his legs because it gets a little bit easier terrain-wise now. The barriers are going out a lot more than a kilometre today. This is a perfect race amongst the plantain trees of France, and Vinokourov is in the same position he was just 24 hours ago, dangling in front of the peloton of the Tour de France.
Only on this occasion it panned flat to the finish. Last time it was a kilometre uphill before he could get to the finishing straight. These guys seem to have lost the pressure, and Vinokourov is actually extending his advantage. It's 18 seconds to the front end of the main field, and Milram, they seem to be losing their firepower.
Well, there's a sign on the right there saying there's a radar control just up the road. Well, these boys are going to blow up the light bulbs, I think, because these guys are flying now right down the dead centre of road here. They can all see him, but if you look at the front of the peloton, Paul, I'm not sure they can catch him.
Well, I'm not sure they will, but they still have to sprint.
Coming up.
They still have to sprint, Phil. There's 35 points for the winner, but there's points for the first 25 riders on the stage. So all of those men in the group behind are still going to have to sprint, even if they don't catch Alexander Vinokourov. He is still looking at an 18-second advantage, and that face is really a picture of pain.
As he now hears the cheers of the crowd, the seconds of the meters tick off. He's round the sharp bend. He's lining up for the finish shortly. He's got another flick yet. Is he going to make it? It looks like he might, you know. Well, he was disqualified in 2007 after he won stage in Albion Loudain-Viel because he was later accused of changing his blood during the Tour de France. He served a sentence for that, but this time he can now add to his wins in Gap, Briançon and Paris, because this time they are not going to catch Alexander Vinokourov. And it's the old motto, if at first you don't succeed, you just keep on trying. And Vinokourov is coming home the winner today, and that's what he wanted so much, so dearly. He thanked the organisers for letting him back in the Tour de France when he cheated, and now he wins again.
Well, that's an emphatic victory for him and for Team Astana. He will be proud of that. That will have the country of Kazakhstan rocking, I would say. Well, there's a big sprint now, Phil, for second place, and it's very important. There's Cavendish.
Cavendish comes up on the left, checking who's making it on. Boysenhagen in the black, Pataki on the far right. Hushovd is washed out. Cavendish takes it from Pataki. Pataki looks to see where the green jersey finishes. They will be very close in the overall tonight.
Well, I'll take my hat off to the sprinters for getting over that, but I'll take my hat off to this man from Astana and from Kazakhstan. You have to say he's come back from an awful long way to get this victory, and I'm sure one of the first people to congratulate him will be Alberto Contador.
Alexander Vinokourov got the stage win he'd been deprived of by his boss's battle with Andy Schleck the day before. Then it was time for the Tour's centenary visit to the Pyrenees, 4 massive days of climbing that would decide the race.